and welcome back to the Genesis Designs Modelcraft bench. Just before I'm about to move the bench, I'm going to quickly film two more reviews for you. So, first one then, Eduard. Very, very kindly sent across by Vince from Models for Sale for review and indeed to give away to one of you lucky chaps. So, what have we got? The weekend edition Bf109G-6/8S. Those of you that are expert and will know what that means, I'm afraid I don't, but I'm just going to tell you about the kit. So, weekend edition then. Things have changed a bit with weekend editions, so let's have a look in the box and I'll show you what I mean. And straight away, the box. Older weekend editions were kind of a slightly cheaper version of a standard kit. Obviously they didn't have etch and what have you, but the box was also, shall I say, more rubbish. Not so much now. This is decent and big. Get in there. There we go. So inside then the kit. I haven't opened anything, so we're just going from scratch here. And let's just get everything out of the box ready. I'm gonna get the box out of the way. So the biggest sprues, there's two in here. Peely sticky bag as usual, which is nice. And you've essentially got all the sort of smaller, detail-y kind of parts here. You can see there's a couple of weapons options covered here. Got cannon pods on here. Got a couple of different, or three different types of rudder. Undercarriage parts, exhaust parts, radiator baths, all that good stuff. And there's lots of little sort of insidey bits like for fitting the intake scoops and such. A couple of different tail wheel oleos. There's quite a lot going on there. The exhaust stacks, plastic exhaust stacks, are in fact hollowed out at the end. I'm unsure as to whether my camera can physically capture that, but these are hollowed out in the ends. These are not. This style with the shroud already moulded in, these are not hollowed out, these are hollowed out, which is super nice. It's getting to be a more and more common thing actually with modern injection moulded kits, things like that. This again, the other big sprue, so you've got your undercarriage bay parts there. A little bit simpler than things like a Spitfire to be fair, but there's still several parts involved. Three different propeller options, some undercarriage legs and doors, a little bomb carrier there. I say little, it can carry about 4 bombs by the looks of it, and we do indeed have 4 tiny bombs there, probably SC-50s, and then one bigger bomb here. Central mounted drop tank, and then over this side of the sprue several different wheel and tyre combinations. So you've got smooth tyres, excuse me, and 2 different sorts of treaded tyres. Spinner, gun scoops, it's all good stuff, and it's all really nicely moulded. For those that don't like photo etch, and bear in mind of course that this kit doesn't actually include any, this is what you can expect from your moulded on detail for your instrument panel here. And you can see also that that cockpit tub is really nicely done for the scale. There's enough going on there that you probably don't need to immediately run out and buy an Airs cockpit set. Oh indeed, I swear, a Brassin, of course a Brassin cockpit set, not an Airs. So the main parts are held in this other packet here. And you've got the wing pieces on here. Now it's worthy of mention the surface detail on this kit. I guess we're kind of used to seeing this from Eduard by now, but this surface detail is absolutely beautiful. And I do think oftentimes when you look at reviews on sites where you've got still photographs of the surface detail on any kit, it always seems to look a little bit, photographs quite often make them look a little bit over pronounced, I think. Hopefully you can see that this is anything but pronounced. It's absolutely beautiful, very fine. There's a slight bit of plastic texture in the undersurface here, but less in the upper, and on the inside it's all just beautifully machined, which doesn't matter to most people, but I enjoy it. but yeah, I'm weird. Over here, fuselage halves. They are in one piece, they don't have separate noses. There's yet another propeller option, yet another rudder option, 2 fins. Plenty going on here. And you've got cowling options as well, presumably early and late, and yet more tyres as well. So, you know, there's a lot of options here. And people who understand Messerschmitts, I'm not one of them, will know what you can and can't use. But for those of us that are just going to build it because it's got a cool paint scheme, you'll just have to trust the instructions. So all this weirdness with the bulges and things on these late 109s is all captured really rather nicely, and all just moulded straight in. We've not got to worry about adding bulges and cutting off noses or anything silly like that. And there is some sidewall detail moulded in to both of these halves. It's all absolutely glorious. I've not built an Eduard G yet. I have built the Eduard E, and it is a very, very nice build, but if memory serves, and I'm not sure, I think the E came out before the G, so we'll see. Right, clear parts. As with the rest of the kit, you've got a few options there. No less than 3 separate canopy sections, which look broadly similar to the uninitiated, i.e. me. Slightly different shape on these two, and this one has got a central bar across it. Then you've got 2 different windscreen mouldings. Look pretty much similar to me. The armour plate, this is the I think it's the fuel line that goes inside the cockpit, but right up to Eduard's normal standard. Beautifully clear, really nicely done, and it covers everything you need. So, instructions. Now, older previous Weekender kits had a small folded paper instruction sheet. This one doesn't. This booklet is along the same lines as the standard Profi Pack instructions are, but just with this sort of simplified branding. It's the same good quality paper and printing, the same size, it's all full colour. It's just it's got this simpler branding on it, and I mean I can't imagine that saves massive amounts of money, but it's just one colour. So there's a bit of history on the front, well quite a bit of history actually. And then we get into things. So here are all the parts you don't use, which is a lot. Again, those of you who like to build Messerschmitts will be able to supplement the old spares box quite happily with this. Getting into the build, exactly the same images as a Profi. I'm going to angle this up so my light doesn't reflect too badly, excuse the arm. There is a decal included, many decals included for the interior, which is nice because there's no pre-coloured etch in this one. And as you'd expect, you've got Legend in there straight away to do various things for various versions. So there it's saying cut out that little hole marked in red here, but only if you want to do markings A or B. Moving on there to fit the tail pieces. Interesting addition of a moulded piano hinge for this upper cowling here. It's a bit different. Fitting the slats, ailerons. Here you've got your radiator baths again. No photo etch included, but the detail is moulded on anyway. It's no biggie. You've got the flaps on the rear end, so the flaps layout on the 109G is quite interesting in that the radiator flap itself is also the flap. It's quite cunning the way they did that. All with some nice alignment tabs to line everything up, nice sort of sturdy tabs, which I have built the Tamiya 109G quite recently, and it all locks together beautifully, so it's be interesting to see how similar that is. Unlike the Tamiya kit, the undercarriage legs merely have a square post to plug into the bottom of the wing. The Tamiya kit has a sort of an L-shaped extension that comes back down here, so that you really can't get the alignment wrong, which is nice because the alignment on these can be a bit tricky. Moving on to placing the canopy, and there you can see the different versions for the different marking options. Central tank should you require it. Showing you there to fit in it, to create your own aerial from wire for that part there, and this shows you how the radio aerial's laid out, and it's nice. Also got your undercarriage angles quite nicely shown there too. And that brings us on to the markings options, and again this is different from the older weekend edition releases, because cast your mind back, those weekenders would generally have one or maybe at a push two decal options. This kit has several, and they're all really nice. This one, JG1 Paderborn, Germany, 1944. There's a host of different overpainted markings. You've got a defence band there, different colours, different shades. It's all very interesting. The overall scheme is 74 and 75 over 76, as you'd expect, but with lots of different bits of patches and oversprays. This one then, the second scheme, JG3, Germany 44, and this is one of those overall RLM 76 aircraft. You could argue it's boring, but the fact that it isn't RLM 74, 75, 76 kind of means it isn't boring. And it does have a nice yellow cowl and a rather excellent spinner spiral as well. The third one, and I do like these, this is a Jagdgruppe 10. This one has a black belly. I'm not going to sing the song, it's tempting. So this one has even more overspray going on. Again, the basic scheme is 74, 75 and 76, as you'd expect, but this time we've got oversprayed black undersurfaces, we've got black mottling, we've got squiggles of 76 over the previous camo. There's an extra mottling over the top of the previous camo. It's a really interesting scheme, and I do like this one. So this is one of the Wilde Sau, or sort of, I think they're called night pigs or wild pigs or something, did night raiding. I do have under the desk here somewhere the limited edition jewel boxing. Just grab it quickly. This one. This is a dual combo kit, and it has many of these markings, this style of markings, as you can see here, but it doesn't include this red too. There are other ones. This one is from the same unit, but basically the same kit, but just a single one. Anyway, I digress. Then we have a Finland one. Again, 74, 75 and 76, but this time with numerous yellow additions and of course the big blue swastika markings. I don't know why they insist on censoring Finnish swastikas, because, well, let's not get into that. Okay, and finally then another Finland aircraft, but this one with the roundel version of their markings, and this is the one from the unit with the moon and the bat, which is rather attractive. You've got a green fin and rudder, lots of mottling, but again basically 74, 75 and 76. Stencil placement diagram completely separate, covers everything, and then that's for markings A, B and C, and then for the two finish options you've got an entirely separate diagram showing where everything goes for them. So that is your basic kit. Let's look at the decal sheet quickly. Come on out. And yes, again, in marked contrast to earlier weekend editions, you are getting a lot of decal sheet here. Stencils, one sheet there, another sheet there. Let's peel that off. It's immediately obvious to me that these are indeed the now standard new style of Eduard Decker with the peelable film, should you wish to. So that leaves a kind of quite a large area of carrier film, but you can see even on the sheet how easily that blends into the backing paper. So if you don't take this carrier film off, it can blend into the model's surface actually really well. So don't panic if you've never used these before and you don't fancy doing the whole peely thing. Don't worry about it, because they will blend in super nicely with a little bit of clear varnish work. Notice here that the sprayed or oversprayed 3 is included on the decal, and actually is really nicely done. It doesn't have the sort of horrible dotty effect that they quite often have when they try to replicate sprayed things. So that's a really nice touch. And what they've done is offered you 2 different versions of that, so you've got yellow or white. Presumably they don't conclusively know which is which, so they've given you both, and you, the modeller, can make your own decision as to what colour you want to use. Multiple stencil options all covered there, and I do think that this peelable carrier film thing, if nothing else, pays for itself when it comes to stencils, because instead of being potentially really obvious blebs on a finish, you can peel that film off and then they look like stencils should. So I have had changeable inconsistent results with this peelable thing. The Tornado came out really well. I did a Special Hobby 72nd 109 and I had a few issues with that and had to do a bit of touching up. I think if you accept ahead of time that you're going to do a bit of touching up, grit your teeth and go for it. They are pretty decent, and I overall I think I like them. Right, I'm going to do a quick snip on this. I'm going to pause the video and snip the main parts off. You don't need to watch me doing that. So we're back in a sec with a pile of pieces. Okay, so back with a pile of bits. This is just the basics of the main construction. A couple of bits I snipped off just for reference to show you. So this is some of the moulded exhaust stacks from the kit. See if I can, without the rest of the sprue in the way. There you go. You can see there that they're hollowed out on the ends, which is hugely impressive and very nice touch. Less impressive, and it's become obvious as I've snipped parts off and looked at them more closely to clean them up. Flash. Again, I'm not going to sing the song. Fill in for me, lads. Flash. So, do you see it? There's a fair bit of flash on this radiator housing. And it's in a lot of places repeated throughout the kit. Is it a big deal? No, not really. It's not heavy, but it's there. And you know, it has to be addressed. You can't just leave that on. If you build with liquid cement, extra thin whatever, that flash is light enough that you'll probably dispose of it with the glue as you're putting things together, but I tend to use CA and because of that it gets in the way. This is repeated here. This is the front top cowl. Note the it's got 4 pegs for alignment, but it's got this huge great flash dangler on there which needs to come off. Will no doubt get in the way of something when we fit it together. Same deal on the wing panels. One of them had some flash along the inside edge where the mould seam sits, and that's the kind of thing that's going to inhibit a good fit with the fuselage side. So the last point to note straight away with just initial cleanup and removal of these parts, the main sprue stubs on these fuselage halves, they're the kind which protrude onto the joint, which is fine. I get it, it's a thing. Presumably, in theory, it's to avoid having scars on the outer surface of the kit, or potentially having scars on the outer surface of the kit. However, Eduard have gone the whole hog here and actually provided you with a scar to clean up on the outside and one on the inside. So not only do you have to carefully remove it in here so as not to cause yourself a fit issue, you have to carefully remove it on the face of the kit as well to avoid a visible scar. So I don't know what that's all about. They're very thick as well and quite difficult to snip, and this fuselage half you can see had become detached in in transit, and I've been left with a huge hole here where the large sprue stub has ripped itself out. Anyway, that said, let's sellotape these bits together and see how it fits. Just with this basic cleanup, I've not gone around sanding faces or anything like that. So we'll just see what we basically get without any fettling. And I'll do it where you can see me, I'm so sorry. So we have locating pegs and holes, but they're very small, they're subtle and they're rounded, so they don't locate solidly. Yeah, now as I was cleaning this up, I noticed that along most of these joint faces there's a sort of a slightly rounded appearance. It's almost as though it's slightly short shot. It's not got crisp square edges, and that's showing itself here now when you align the leading edges with this very, very slight gap. That's because the joint faces aren't actually flat. So this will benefit from the old use your sanding stick across the part and flatten out these joint faces a little bit. The other thing is the wingtips here. This one featured a bit of flash and a bit more sort of short shot effect, and you can see there that that isn't the nicest fit, and it's also thicker than the wingtip. So if you want that to fit beautifully, you're going to need to thin this inside off a little bit to achieve a flush fit with the wingtip. And obviously the reflection in the light there has shown you that there's quite a decent sink mark there as well. But it's nothing horrible. You know, glue and squeezing would probably eliminate the leading edge seam all by itself. And it's not going to be the work of more than a few minutes to just thin this down a touch at the end. Yeah, this is the same. The locating pegs are quite irritating because they're not very secure. Doesn't really matter when you're using glue as well, I suppose, but something to watch out for. Obviously with a full build you'll have all the internals in this wheel well, which will help to set the thickness of the wing, but at the back edge here it is full thickness inside, so you can't over squeeze it and make it too thin at the back. Tail plane. That slots together beautifully. As does that one, no nasty gap. And again full thickness in here, so you can't make it too slim. So let's see how these go together. So Eduard haven't made any effort here to provide you with a ready-made seam along the top and the bottom. I think we all know that the 109 is built in two halves. This rear fuselage is actually built in two halves and they were joined together. So there was a visible seam along the top and bottom in the form of a sort of an overlapping joint. I think you can see that the back doesn't seem to be going together properly, and I'll show you why. It's down to this rather excellent ejector pin plus flash arrangement here. So I'll just get rid of that with my nippers. Just carefully but decisively snip that bad boy out of the way. And that looks a lot better. So the way to give yourself that panel seam nicely, if you're worried about it, is very, very simple. Get your scalpel and just run it along that top corner, just gently, once or twice. Don't do it too much because you'll give yourself a hoofing gap. Same on the other half. Got the blade tipped sort of forwards so that I'm not gouging or gagging, and I'm coming down, I'm sort of stroking across it as well, so as just to get a nice smooth chamfer, rather than, you don't want any sort of chattering of the blade, because that will be visible in your finished product. And that, if you're careful, will give you a result that fairly well matches the rest of the panel lines without any further work. It saves you any, there won't need to be any filling. You can use liquid cement to join it together, no worries. So you can literally position it and just run your extra thin along the gap, that little panel line that you've created. Do the same on the belly, but remember that the fin fillet doesn't want that to stop at the front of the fin fillet there. Now underneath here, again during cleanup, I noted that the moulds ran out of talent along the bottom here. It's because it's a flat surface and it's relatively deep, but this detail here, scribing, is all quite indistinct, and we've got some vertical scarring as well along toward the edge of these parts where it's been taken from the mould. I'm not sure if that's going to come up. And again, from the rear of this raised panel all the way down to the back, notwithstanding this fill-in panel where the undercarriage leg goes, you want to do that same scraping process to create that panel line. There we go. So yeah, overall that's decent, but with the sort of the flash and the scarring from the tools and the scarring from the sprue stubs, there's a fair bit of cleanup required here. No matter how well you get this to fit, there's a fair bit of cleaning up going to be needed, and some rescribing, because there's a lot of sort of access panel detail across these and close to these joins. So the nose panel should hopefully pretty much just drop in, but it doesn't. I might have the wrong one. Let me double check rather than saying it doesn't fit. This one looks like it's the right shape. It's got this really extreme sort of pinched in thing. I think that's for a different version, so my bad on that one. Sorry Eduard. Anyone from Eduard is watching. Humble apologies. There you go, click. Again, that's just dropped straight in, and that's lovely. So the only issues here are caused by the sort of the flash and the sort of semi-short shot stuff going on around this front edge of the seam in the corners here. But that fit is more than adequate. You look at some shots of these things for real during, you know, in wartime, and the fit of these panels was quite shady at times. So if there is a little bit of unevenness, it's not something you really need to worry too much about. And that's that on. What happens when we try to introduce the wing? Oh yes, that's dropped in beautifully. No complaints there. No complaints at all. Very, very slight bit of a gap both sides, but you know, bear in mind we don't have any internals in here. It might spread it very slightly. Plus we can always improve the fit of these parts, as I said, just make sure there's no flash on this edge here. And you can do the same thing with a sanding board, just a couple of swipes. If there's any flash there or any unevenness in that seam, that will take it out completely. But yeah, that drops into place lovely. no issues. And then you obviously have your oil cooler bath to sit in here. Let's just put some tape on that to hold it. So, you quite often see comments bandied around these days with Eduard kits that they're as good as Tamiya or better, and they fit like Tamiya. Fits like Tamiya is a sort of a almost universal compliment in modelling, isn't it? I'm just going to show you something in a second. These just plug into 2 holes. I don't really like it, but it does seem to work okay. Not the sturdiest arrangement, but they sit there happily enough. So there you go, that's your basic sort of main construction. And as you can see, if it weren't for the sort of the basic quality control issues with the mould finish and what have you, this isn't a particularly old kit, so I'm a bit surprised that this is all getting a little bit ragged already. And these very slight sort of short shots around the edges, or rounding around the edges, that's what's causing these tiny gaps and misalignments. But they are tiny. They're there, so I've got to say it, but they are tiny. So there you go. That's not too bad at all, is it? So yeah, fits like Tamiya. Well, does it? Well, no, honestly. Here's a Tamiya 109G I made earlier, not too long ago actually. This is the relatively recent release. We put them sort of at the same angle together. Yeah, you can see they both look like a 109, don't they? This is a different engine arrangement, I believe. So it looks quite different around the front, but it's still labelled as a G6. But as I said, I'm not expert, and I don't know, so don't damn me. But yeah, yeah, I'm just going to show you the party trick of this kit, just to show you what I'm on about. Don't panic. None of this is glued together. There goes the spinner and the prop. There goes the front. There goes that. There goes that. And there goes that. All of it is held together with polycaps and magnets. So you can put a different front end on it. So the underneath is held as some magnets inside the engine. That holds the underneath on. The windscreen just slips on, it's not held in place by anything. And you add your main cowling. Click. Again, not actually held in by anything, it's just sitting there. That's a friction fit on the crankshaft, and then there's a polycap inside the spinner. So once everything's on, it can't fall off. But look at that. No glue, no problem. That's Tamiya fit for you. There is no filler on this kit. The tailplane and fin are not glued on. I'm not going to take them off to prove it because the aerial is glued on, but they're not glued into position. They're literally just plugged into place. The alignment of these undercarriage legs is fixed by the fact that they continue back into this area. I can't even remember if I glued that panel on actually, probably didn't. They just go back inside under here, and they've got great big tabs on them, so you can't fit them wrong. You'd have to try quite hard to get it wrong. I know there's people out there that probably could, but then drop tank, again there's a poly cap in there and it just pushes on. That's Tamiya fit, chaps, and Eduard, as good as they are nowhere near this. Likewise, quality control, fit and finish, this kit is immaculate throughout. There's no flash, there's no massive ejector pin getting in the way of anything. And on top of that, despite the fact that this has a full engine and interchangeable cowls, there are less parts in the kit and it's less difficult to put together. As I say, I've not built a G, but I have built an E. It's not fiddly, but it's unnecessarily faffy, and that's just brought into sharp relief when you then go and mess about with the Tamiya kit. It is a bit more expensive. I think it's fair to say that the Tamiya kit is around about £35 in the UK. The Eduard Profis are sort of 27, 28 for the most part, so it's a bit more expensive and doesn't include photo etch, but yeah, it also doesn't have a riveted surface, and some people do prefer that. So the Eduard kit, ultimately a little bit more finesse in the detail in the sort of small areas, but you're paying for that by more difficult construction, the fact that you have to use photo etch. And you're going to have to put a bit more time and effort into the preparation, the gluing and the finishing. But overall, there's not I really am splitting hairs. I hope you can get that. I'm not knocking this. This is a lovely kit. Yeah, I think it's decent, and this in Weekender, guys, is less than £20. Less than £20 for this, with all those Decal options, you know. Very, very good value for money, and it's still going to be a much easier build and a much better looking finished model than you're going to get from the Academy kit, from the Hasegawa kit, even the Airfix kit. They're not going to be as nice as this when they're done. So still a very, very good option, and you can have two of these for the price of one Tamiya, so pay when you take your choice. Anyway, if anybody wants this one, I'm going to give one away, so you're not going to have to accept my second-hand tape together offering, because Vince actually sent me two. So there's one that I can hack about and one that I can send off to a lucky winner. So all I need you to do, if you would like this kit, this Eduard Weekend Edition 109 G6 AS, just drop me a comment below. Any comment will do. Like the video, give it a comment, and I'll give it a month or so and I'll pick somebody out to receive this kit absolutely free of charge, and obviously complete with a Genesis sticker. We can't forget that. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. No, it's a little bit long, sorry about that. So yeah, that's it for this one. Until next time, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.